Well, I just know I'm not going to get a good picture of this because when do I ever get a good picture of anything? Why, hello there. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Harley Nouveau, if you did not know, and today I have the third video in that series I talked about where I will be recreating makeup. This time it's going to be a bit different because I'm not going to be recreating someone else's makeup. I am going to be recreating my makeup from my very first video I ever uploaded, which is here, this picture right here. Happens to be a year ago today, on this day, December 12th, is when I uploaded that video. Now I only had the makeup on for the first 5 minutes because I was really struggling to figure out how to do a video in the first place. Which I don't know if I've really gotten that much better. I feel like I have. So in today's chapter of my story, I'm going to be recreating that makeup. I'm going to be talking about my journey that I've gone through this past year and my whole life kind of with myself in the way that I see myself. But before we get into it, please don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to my channel, add your name to the storybook that is my life. And if you do, make sure that you ring the bell down below so you'll get notified every time I upload, which I've been pretty good about uploading these past few weeks, and hopefully I will keep that trend going. Also, in one of my videos next week, I have some big news for you. So, Merry Christmas ahead of time. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump into this whole thing. First things first, I'm actually not going to do my brows at the beginning today. I'm going to do my eye. And to do that, I'm just going to take, this is what I've been using recently, the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear. I'm going to use the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear Concealer as a base and just blend that out with this fluffy brush. This is from Miss A, AOA Studios High Definition Brush E107. So I first started my channel, as I say, a year ago on the dot. And I also, if you don't know, I don't know if I talked about it at the time, had just got into makeup when I started my channel in a more serious way. I'd always played around a bit, but I never really had actually tried. So it's gonna be intriguing to see how far, if at all, my skills have progressed since then. Taking the Ace Beauty palette, this is the Grandiose palette. I'm gonna go in with Patchouli right here, and I'm just gonna use that as my first transition color. And I'm gonna use the Morphe X Jaclyn Hill JH30 brush. It's just a big fluffy brush. I remember when I first started this thing, it was actually a video talking about Target. I had just lost my job at Target and I was talking about what happened and what really urged me to start a YouTube channel in the first place, which I'd always wanted to do, but it was kind of that push that I needed. Also happened to be right before I began shaving off part of my brows, which if you've been with me this past year, you'll remember that journey and what that was like. Next up, I'm gonna go in with Clove on a Luxie 229 tapered blending brush, and I'm just gonna use that to add a little bit more color and really start the shape of my eye going in the way of which I would like it to go. Ever since I was younger, I've always had a really, I don't want to say troubled dynamic with myself when it comes to my mental health and my self-esteem, but confidence and self-love is really a battle that I have fought with myself for years now, and there's never a point where it was overly overbearing on my life until later on. So when I was really little, apart from like traumatic things happening in my life, I wouldn't say that the way that I felt about myself had too much of an effect on my life. For the most part, I was just kind of a semi-normal kid. Next, I'm gonna go in with the ColourPop Main Squeeze palette, and I'm going to take an e.l.f. blending eye brush, and I'm gonna go in with Like It's Hot, and just reinforce some of that color, really start adding the red pigmentation into the eye. Something that really was, however, prominent from very early on, even to this day, is this idea I've always had of not being good enough, of being extremely hard on myself, essentially. From very early age, I've always been a successful child. I've always excelled in academics and pretty much whatever I put my mind to for the most part. But it seemed like, to me, I was never good enough. And no matter how well I did, my mind always told me I can do better. And, you know, it's hard enough dealing with the burdens that the world will place on you, but dealing with your own expectations on top of that can be kind of overwhelming. And no matter how much positive reinforcement I got from people, in my mind always justified it as them placating me or talking down to me or being condescending, or you know that thing people will do where they just want attention and they just want to be complimented, so they'll down themselves. I felt like people acted like that towards me, and that wasn't ever my intention. I wasn't seeking a compliment. I was just voicing how I felt. But a lot of that comes from like positive and negative headspace, I'm sure. In my previous videos, I've always had an interest in specific things, especially the more creative side of life. I was always into theater, I was always into art, and from very early on, I was always told I was gifted. So I felt that, even though I knew I was smart, that was really where my life path was taking me, was utilizing that artistic skill. As I got older and went through the schooling system, I really followed that navigational chart of art, creativity, and I kind of put that at the forefront of a lot of my life decisions, at least when it came to like the path I was on in academics. Next, I'm gonna go in with Poppy in that Ace Beauty palette on a ColourPop E19 brush. This is just kind of a tapered eyeshadow brush, and I'm gonna use that to deepen up my crease and add a lot more depth on the outer corner. I did ultimately decide to go to college for drawing and painting, which in hindsight, I do feel was a mistake. Not because I think higher education is a mistake, but I feel as though I settled with what I knew was going to be easier, not because I wanted to do it, but because it was the path of least resistance. Not that I didn't want to do art, but I didn't want to go to school where I went. And as I was in school, I found it to be such a different experience from what I was expecting, because when you go to school for something, there's a very like specific regimen. And growing up, art always represented this freedom, artistic freedom specifically. You know, I could do what I want in the way that I wanted to do it because it was my art at the end of the day. And in college, it's not like that. It's, you have your assignment laid out, you have to do it a certain way, it has to look a certain way, and you're heavily critiqued on that. Not that I think that critiquing is bad, but I feel like in the world of art is so subjective, and a lot of the times their critiques have nothing to do with technical skill. It was all about meaning and personal preference. You know, let's say I am a representational painter, I am not a abstract artist, and I got a lot of kickback in school because they wanted me to be more abstract, but that's just not me. And I felt that the college atmosphere was so stifling, but you do what is expected of you, what, you know, you're kind of told to do by the people around you, and everyone was always like, you know, go to college, college is where it's at, higher education, and I really hated it. I pushed through it for years because I thought that's what I needed to do, but I was so unhappy. And, you know, Jasmine was with me for a lot of that journey. She can really tell you that if you ever had a chance to talk to her, because I was such a different person in college. I'm gonna go back in with that main squeeze palette, and in the very bottom corner, red bottoms, it's like a really deep maroon color. And I'm just gonna take a Morphe M507, and this is also a tapered eyeshadow brush. This is a little bit pointier than the one I was just using. I also struggled a lot with my identity and who I was, because I know college is the place where you learn all of that, but something that I was always grateful for growing up is that I always had a strong sense of self. Maybe not my place in the world, but I always had a strong sense of identity in who I was. And college brought a new element of uncertainty that never really existed in my life before that point. And specifically when it came to my gender expression, I guess I would say, because I've always been rather effeminate. And when I hit college, I came to a lot of personal realizations about different things, and there was some things that happened to me, and ultimately I blamed myself for that happening. And one of the things I blamed it on is the fact that I was so feminine. I felt if I had been more masculine presenting, I would have been spared some of that pain. And as such, I kind of changed the way that I dressed and presented myself, and a little bit of the way I behaved in an attempt to be as masculine as possible. Obviously, I'm a total queen, so I was never going to be passable, but maybe not so over the top and targetable. Ultimately, as I've moved past that point of my life, I regret that a lot, because I think that it led to a lot more pain and self-loathing than it would have had I just stayed true to myself. Next, I'm going to go in and cut the crease, and for that I'm going to use my ColourPop No Filter Concealer in the shade 00. It's white, and the brush that I use for that is somewhere. And the brush that I'm going to use for that is this Bodyography concealer brush. I'm sorry, I got really quiet for that part. I wanted to concentrate as much as possible because I still have a hard time cutting my crease in a shape that I enjoy. Because if you get close, you see that my eye is hooded, but more than the fact that it's hooded, it's really, the skin, it's like flabby. It's not like a tight hood where you can see like a really good outline of an orbital bone or anything like that. And because of that, I had this struggle where I put my crease, because if I go too high, it looks very fake no matter how much dimension and shading I put onto it. And if I go too low, it just disappears. Like if I open my eye all the way, it kind of disappears. But I like having like a little hint of it, whereas if I go all the way up here with my eye open, you can tell there's clearly a white line on top of a pronounced part of my brow. I'm gonna go in the main squeeze palette with this color Big Gulp, and I'm gonna put that on the outer corner here, just because in the original picture it looks like there was a little bit of a warmer orangey tone, and that looks like a more orange red. This part's gonna be really quick, so I'm not gonna talk during it, I'm just gonna tell you what I'm doing. Next, going back into that Ace Beauty palette, I'm gonna take Myrtle, which is this coppery metallic color, and I'm just gonna put that on the mid to outer corner of my eye on the cut crease. And to do that, I'm just gonna use the JH41 brush from Jaclyn Hill and Morphe. Next, taking the ColourPop E18 brush, I'm gonna go in with Primrose, which is this metallic gold color, and I'm gonna put that all over the front corner to halfway point of my cut crease. Hopefully it's not too dark. Then going in, I know I'm using a lot of brushes for this, I'm going to take this M326 brush, and I'm gonna go in with Jasmine here from the Ace Beauty palette, and I'm gonna put that on the front third of my eye just to brighten it up a little bit. I actually don't even remember what palette I used to do this initial look, so I'm just winging it. Next up, I'm gonna do liner, Wish Me Luck, because I always mess this up. I'm gonna go in with the e.l.f. liquid liner in black because I've been finding it easier to do liquid lately. I say that, watch me mess all of this up. And I'm just gonna do a winged shape. It's not a big wing, it's just gonna be a little one going from here all the way out to the outer corner as a wing would go. You know that. What am I talking about? Well, as I predicted, I did indeed mess that up a bit. So I'm gonna go back in with M507 brush from Morphe and that red bottoms color from the main Squeezy palette, and I'm gonna just deepen up that part right here so it doesn't look as harsh. And then taking this tiny liner brush from e.l.f., I'm gonna go in and just reinforce above that cut crease a bit with that red bottom color. Taking that M326, I'm gonna highlight my brow a little bit. I am gonna go back in with brow product later, but I do wanna set that highlight down. So that is this eye as complete as it's going to be at this time. I am gonna go do the other eye off camera real quick, and then I'm gonna pop back in to do my face and continue talking as I love to do. That is that eye done. I actually really, especially this eye, I always have one eye better than the other, but I really love the way that this eye came out. I feel like that's honestly probably the best cut crease I've ever done on that side. So props to you. So next I'm gonna get started on my face. I've been using the ColourPop Pretty Fresh primer, so I'm gonna put that on and continue my story. So when I left Denton, the city I went to college, I moved back to where I grew up. It was not so bad at first because I really got into the swing of things. I was becoming autonomous. I had a job that I really enjoyed, and it seemed like things were looking up. And it was at that job that I started playing with makeup more because I felt like I had more freedom. I finally was getting at a place of being semi-comfortable with myself. I'm gonna go in with the Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation. This is a 00B, and I'm going to put that on my face. This is a new technique I've been trying out. I don't know if I've done this in a video yet, but you put it on with your fingers and then you blend it out with a sponge. So I'm gonna do that. I just feel so freaking crazy when I do this. So yeah, felt like things were starting to really work out for me. The world was not done making me struggle. As you guys know, if you watched that video, I did end up losing my job around the beginning of December last year. That was really devastating to me because I really enjoyed my job. Like I said, I honestly, I would have never known it going into it. It was really something I pictured myself doing for like the rest of my life. I liked it that much. But that was not the story I was meant to be a part of. And that really threw me into a depression that remained prevalent this entire year. Next, I'm gonna go in with some concealer. Today, I'm gonna be using this ColourPop No Filter Concealer. This is in shade, I think light 10. Yeah, I just got this color recently because it matches my skin a little bit more. I will mix a tad bit of my previous color Fair 08 in with it to add a little bit of a highlight, and I'll blend that out. When I first started doing makeup again, I don't want to say it was an aha moment, but it was eye-opening for me because it allowed me an avenue to express my creative drive in a way that I'd never really thought about before. That was something that I really felt like I was lacking once I left school, because once I was done with college, I didn't really want to paint anymore because it killed my drive. That the restriction really made me not enjoy it anymore. I'm gonna blend that out with this. And it was nice having something that I felt gave me a little bit of meaning again. And even though times got tough for me, I kept with it because I really do, and I've said this before, I really do love makeup and beauty and being a part of this community. And not only because of the creative juices that it allows me to expunge from my system, but through getting into makeup, and especially makeup on social media platforms, I have really gained an appreciation, love, and respect for myself. I know that sounds silly, but spending so much one-on-one time with myself in the mirror and looking at myself so much has really allowed me to gain confidence and learn to love myself in a way that I never really had. Because like I said, growing up, I didn't think that I was beautiful. I didn't think that I was honestly even decently attractive. I thought the only thing I really ever had going for me was my brain and my personality, which I've said before kind of gets lost in translation sometimes on camera, because a lot of my personality is, as most of us are, reactionary to other people. So when I'm by myself, I'm a bit more chill and mellow. But when I'm around other people, I'm a lot more energetic, lively, active. I have a lot more moxie, as I've recently been told. As I've been told by Madam Scuttlebutt on YouTube. Check them out. I'll link them down below. Now, this community and doing this has really allowed me to, it's given me the ability to love myself and to have love for myself in a way that I've always been lacking. That's something that not only I needed, but I feel like everybody needs in their life. You have to be able to love yourself. Or to quote RuPaul,
if you can't love yourself, how in the hell you're gonna love somebody else?
If that makes any sense. I say that a lot, if that makes any sense. So my next step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my face. The only reason I do that is because every time I've tried not setting my face before doing bronzer and blush and stuff, I've noticed that it looks kind of patchy. So to do that, I'm going to use the Photo Focus translucent powder from Wet n Wild. I am going to use, weirdly enough, a taper highlighting brush from Lexi on my under eye. And for my whole face, I'm just going to use the ColourPop F18 brush. It has taught me how to love myself on the inside as well, because it has really, as I said before, not trapped me, but it has forced me to examine who I am as a person. And that has helped me grow in a couple of different ways, as I said before. I put a temporary hiatus on my series Beauty and the Tea, where I essentially just talked about different things, because I felt, late 2018 to 2019, I felt like I was in such a negative headspace. And because of that, I felt like it was invading every aspect of my life. When I would talk about things, topics, if you will, I felt like I approached them from the headspace of somebody who had a lot of self-loathing and loathing for other people. So it crossed the territory from just giving opinions to being toxic. And that's not something I ever wanted to be. I've always been unapologetically myself for the most part, with the exception of that little blurb in college when it came to my femininity. But I can't be unapologetically a bad person. You shouldn't be unapologetically a bad person, I should say. So I saw that there was a problem there. I decided that it was my responsibility to address it. I will be rebooting that in the new year, because I think that I've grown a lot as a person overall. So I think that I would be able to do it now without having to worry about being toxic. I'm gonna do my brows real quick off camera, just because I take forever to do my brows. And I'll be right back to continue on to the next step. I hate how one eyebrow always comes out looking better than the other. And speaking of journeys, while we're on the topic, if you want to talk about a journey that I've gone through over this past year, my eyebrow journey. I mean, because if you've been with me for a while, you know that I shaved like most of my eyebrow off at the beginning of the year, and it's slowly been growing back because I never liked the shape of my brow and I always tried to change it. And then when I started school, they were like, why don't you just wax them? And I was like, why didn't I think of that? So they're still not perfected, but they're a lot better than they used to be for sure. So next step that we're going to tackle, bronzer? We're gonna do bronzer, yeah, bronzer, contour, whatever. And as you know, because I don't have a hugely eclectic, wide selection of makeup, I'll be going in with my favorite Milani Silky Matte Bronzer in 01 Sunlight. And recently, I've been seeing people use rounder brushes to do this, so I'm gonna try that out. Hopefully it doesn't mess me up. I'm actually really liking the way this is looking, so this is probably gonna be my go-to contour and bronzer, because it's looking cute. Makeup and social media in general has really taught me a new appreciation of myself. I have noticed, you know, they tell you with any growth that you have in life, it has affected my dynamic with a few people because I'm in a better place, and sometimes people don't like that. If they're used to you being a certain way, not everyone wants to see you grow and thrive. And it's a sad truth of life, unfortunately, that I have been dealing with recently. But it's worth it. It has to be worth it. Because, as I've said before, loving yourself in a healthy way has to be one of your most important things in life that you focus on. I always do a little bit on my jawline because I'm huge. And not that it's going to cut it down like a drag queen, but I do want to make it look like I have as much definition as possible. If you happen to have a rotund, extra large head like I do. I hate how much more yellow my skin is than my face. And if I do my face get too yellow to match my normal skin, it looks insane. I know not everybody wants to be in the beauty world or in the social media world, but I do recommend getting into self-care, because not only does it really affect you physically because you're taking better care of yourself, it really affects you mentally. It really helps your self-esteem. It really teaches you how to be compassionate to yourself. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people are missing. You know, when you interact with other human beings, you have outside voices to tell you when you have gone too far, when you are being too hard, when you're being too harsh, and when you cross the line. But when you talk to yourself inside your head, your inner voice doesn't have someone to keep it in check. You are the only person there. And because of that, we often are so much harder on ourselves than we need to be, and that we should be. And I've found that doing this has really taught me how to keep that voice at bay. And that's something that, if nothing else, I am very grateful for, because I've always needed that. I'm gonna take a ColourPop E15 brush, and I'm gonna use this to put a little bit of the bronzer contour on my nose. I have found with my nose shape that I really do not like the way it looks when I do the whole line all the way down. So I've really stopped doing that, and I just try to focus it on up towards my brow bone and along the tip of my nose. I don't know if you can see it that well. And I feel, and especially because I've taken to putting blush on the bridge, and I feel like that really helps. Next up, I'm gonna put on highlighter. I've also been trying out highlighting before I put on blush, because I feel like the blush kind of blends the two together. So to do that, I'm going to use this Moda highlighting brush, and I'm going to use this Pretty Vulgar highlight in Shimmering Swan. This is kind of an icy champagne color. I don't really have a lot of highlights also, and my ColourPop highlights, which I can try out in a second if you want, I've found are kind of glittery, or just not a good color for me. Like, I have this Ursula one, which is purple, and it would be cute if I ever needed it to go with something, but I never have purple makeup on like that. Now, if I ever get around to doing a Ursula look, it would work great. It's a little nice, more diffused highlight, but still kind of popping. And for shiggles, you know what that means, I'm gonna go in with, not that one, I'm gonna go in with Cruella, the ColourPop Super Shock highlighter, which has a weird consistency, and I'm gonna put that up here because you'll see what I mean, I think, with the sparkly thing I was talking about. Can you tell? It has a little bit of glitter to it. I'm not the hugest fan of that aspect of it, but I do love the way the color looks. Okay, next up, I'm gonna go in with blush, and I'm gonna use a combination of 2 different blushes, and that's gonna be my e.l.f. palette and my Laura Geller blush, because this has a really nice rosy sheen and shiver to it. This is the Baked Blush and Brighten in Tropic Hues, and then this is just for pigment. And to do that, I'm going to use F21 brush from ColourPop and the Bodyography blush brush. Color I'm gonna use for this, by the way, is gonna be this one. I believe when I did this look, I kept the blush in this area. See, I like the way that kind of blends the two together. You can kind of see in this video the dynamic I have with myself versus other people, because I'm struggling for what to say when it comes to myself. Versus when I talked about my mom or I talked about Jasmine, it was a lot easier for me. Okay. And I'm gonna run a tad bit over the bridge of my nose. I feel like that adds a little bit of warmth to the face in a different way, a little bit of color to the face. And then next I'm gonna go in with this one, and I'm gonna put that more towards the center apples, and yeah. I meant to tell you guys on a side note, unrelated to this video, I discovered recently a new way to do freckles using watercolor and a toothbrush, and I've been practicing it, and I'm really kind of liking what it's happening. So the moment I get that perfected, I will be trying that out in a video, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my under eye, and to do that, I'm just gonna do a black liner smudged on the bottom, and I'm gonna put on a lip, and I will be back to wrap this bad boy up. I'm going to keep a nude lip. I would do a red, but I didn't do that in the original look, and I want to try to stay as committed to that as possible, but I will do a red lip for my next video, so yeah. So as always, I did use my favorite nude lipstick, which is Hades from ColourPop, the Disney Villains collection. And the mascara that I used, because I forgot to say I was doing that, was Too Faced Better Than Sex, because I actually used this mascara in the original look. I actually have to say, I am so happy with how this turned out, because I was so worried that it was not going to be better than the original look. And I'm like a whole year in no growth, but I think it actually looks a lot better than the original look. I also remembered that in the original look, I didn't have any lipstick on at all. I literally just licked my lips so the foundation would come off, and that's gross, like a heathen. And there is the finished look. Obviously my hair is not red and green anymore like it was in the original. I was gonna do that this year, but I didn't have the money. But let me know how you feel about it down in the comments below. Do you like this more than the original? Do you think the original was better? If you do, choices, I guess, because I feel like objectively this is definitely better than the original by quite a big margin. I feel like the technique is definitely a lot better, but we all have opinions. And with that, today's chapter in my story has come to a close. I want to stress again to you guys, as if I don't do this enough, the importance of loving yourself and having compassion towards yourself and really being comfortable in your own skin. That doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge your flaws, because your flaws are also part of who you are. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to carry on our lives out of love and respect for who we are. And it's for that reason I will be getting a nose job when I have money. Harley, you're going to be watching this because you have to edit it. I want to let you know that I am so proud of how far that you've come. I know that you still have a lot of room to grow, but I think that you're going to be okay. I think that you're going to make it through this, and I know that you are going to achieve happiness and so many great things because you deserve to. With all of that being said, as always, I am Harley Nouveau, and until our stars next align, happy holidays.